Welcome everybody to another edition of Three Dad Bods with Brent, Carl, and Sean. Welcome everybody. How y'all doing?
Fantastic.
Hey guys. Great.
Before
Wearing my University of Minnesota hat today.
sing the song, baby. Sing the song.
I already proved I can sing the song.
Before we get going with today's episode, one of our really good friends and someone that we've known our whole lives, we've had him on our podcast with us, but Glenn Ralph is going through a very, very difficult time right now. And I'm going to kind of just step back on this because I know, Sean, you've been seeing him every day. Carl, you've been talking with him every day. So, let's kind of talk about Glenn for a little bit here.
He's in really good spirits, considering what he's been going through. I've seen him most every day the last couple of weeks while he's been in the hospital, going in before I go to work and just trying to spend a few minutes with him, going through and dealing with the messages from the medical staff regarding the different procedures that they want to do and things that they didn't do ultimately because his health just wasn't good enough to allow it. And his body wasn't responding also to the procedures that they were able to do. And so he's at a point now where the doctors have told him he's terminal, and he has approximately 4 to 6 weeks left on this rock. And so right now, I guess we'll see if they're right. He, as you know, has a history of being an extreme badass and fighting this. And, we don't know if it'll be 3 weeks or 6 weeks, but we love him. And what we hope is that people will offer prayers of any kind to help him and his family get through this. And unfortunately, what it means is the liver's inability to clean his bloodstream. It's going to start causing him to experience some confusion, as well as the physical decline. So he may be around for 6 weeks, but I don't know how long that's going to be time that he'll be cognitive of things. So as I get news from him, I'll let you guys know, and I'll just continue to spend as much time with him as possible and just represent everybody from the neighborhood in seeing him. He's also because of his white blood cell count, he's also very susceptible to becoming ill. And if somebody has a cold and gives him a cold, it could kill him. So I don't, and as I know this probably sounds selfish because I've spent so much time with him the last few weeks, but if he does invite people to come, if you have any illness around you,
don't go. Yeah.
Don't go. I mean, I don't want people to not have the opportunity to tell Glenn that they love him. There are other media options nowadays.
He's
phone a friend.
He's handed off the Facebook social media to his daughter, but he will read all the messages that you guys write him. So if you want to contact him that way, you can do so right now. So there are people leaving messages already on his Facebook page. So,
and anything that he doesn't read, his daughter is going to relay to him. So if you leave him a message, he'll get it.
Hey, Sean, thanks for Thanks for and you mentioned kind of representing the neighborhood. This kind of was announced early yesterday, maybe late Friday night, but the outpouring from the people that we call our neighborhood, um, it's just incredible. I love each and every one of you guys. I'm grateful for an area that we were able to be raised in and grow up together. And here we are, all of us in our 50s. Carl's hitting 60.
Yeah, right.
And but you know we've we've had this unique family, and just the outpouring that I've seen has just been tremendous. And Glenn, I know you feel our love. I know you won't quit, but just know that we all love you as an extended family. Sorry, guys.
Right on. That's I think that's been a very common thing for everyone to say. Not to diminish what you're saying, but it's widely felt, and he's, from what I've seen, he's been very appreciative of the love that he's been
Yeah,
getting. So
he seems. I mean, that was the biggest thing he's been worried about, and he's talked about it in his Facebook post, and he's told me privately. The biggest thing he's concerned about is leaving those behind, and those people that he loves and cares about, especially his family, his grandkids. I mean, he's a pretty happy grandpa from what I can see, and they're going to miss him terribly. So a lot of my prayers are for his family, and Glenn's a tough old buzzard, and he's lived a great life, and it should be celebrated. So I don't think he'd want us to belabor it too much today on the podcast, so we should probably move on. But he is in our thoughts and prayers. Thanks, guys, for mentioning my good friend. You're all our good friends. Well, I mean, this is a topic that Brent came up with, actually, which I at first was like, actually, it wasn't a bad idea. I thought, wow, this could be a fun, good discussion. So I was watching Netflix just recently, and some dude named Graham Hancock came across the
Yeah,
and
yeah.
was talking about and I've heard about this guy before. He's the one with the space alien theory and so
Let me like before you get into him,
yeah.
if you skim just over like what he is about, your initial thought is this guy's crazy.
Well, actually,
you know
yeah, actually, I did watch him.
Just like the skim of, but as you watch this, it starts turning the wheels in your head.
Well, actually, I'm gonna
Really does.
correct that a little bit. I watched last night. I actually did do a little bio on him before he wrote those books, and in the past, he was kind of a environmentalist, and he climatologist, and he's scientist, and then yeah, it did change. He did write those two books, and then his shift went completely to ancient civilizations, and I think it was based on a cataclysmic event that occurred 12,700 years ago. A major asteroid or meteor hit the Earth and caused some major changes.
Knocked us off the kill. Knocked us off access.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was funny, Brent, when I was looking into it, like you suggested, did a little homework. His is not the only theory. There's quite a few out there, and I think this would be a good time to discuss that. I was talking to Sean too just recently about religious texts, and the Epic of Gilgamesh was brought up by Sean, which I don't know too much about. I also came across last night an interesting theory about Green Sahara. I don't know if you guys have done any research on that. The Sahara Desert used to be a jungle, and because the Earth's tilt changes over 40,000 years, that the weather patterns had changed enough to dry up the Sahara. Of course, there are some environmentalists that claim we dried up the Sahara, but I mean, who knows?
Cow farts.
I can't believe
What's
you
that?
just said that. Don't you know it's all man created, and none of it's
science.
is natural.
Yeah.
None of it.
Exactly.
And to push that even deeper, there's something going on in Antarctica. I mean, there's a reason why nobody can go to Antarctica. And we've heard things about pyramids being seen there, but in what you're talking about, Carl, an event that hits the Earth, that changes our axis, that changes if maybe the Sahara was like a temperate zone, and maybe Antarctica was up into a livable climate. There's something there, and I think we had talked about it before. Like, why can nobody go to Antarctica? There's something there. There's something going on.
Besides the fact that there isn't any commercial traffic.
Okay, we're going to go back and kind of circle back to our. We're going to kind of circle back to conspiracies. Do you two believe that there is any? Do you believe that the government or certain institutions in our world would hide information from the average person?
That, Carl.
Yes. Well, the reason I know it's a stupid question.
Yes.
Well, because
whenever you ask the question, do you believe the government? The answer always yes. Unless it's do you believe the government cares about how you feel? No.
30 years ago, you guys would be mocking me, but now it's kind of funny. Yeah, you're right. I mean, well, one of the things that was interesting about that Netflix show, and if anybody else in the audience has watched that, one of the complaints he had is modern archaeology absolutely refuses to acknowledge holes in their theories or issues with when they like, for example, there was this place in Indonesia. They refused to dig in an area that has been recommended by local archaeologists and highly suggested that some of the answers that they're trying to find out about this particular wall building civilization that doesn't exist anymore, where they came from and how they, and there's just like this huge structure they found with a petroleum expert who found it through the technology that they use to find oil reserves. And these archaeologists at some of these main universities or mainline universities in our world refuse to look into it because what are they afraid of? I mean, that's a.
Let me stop you there, though, Carl. I don't think that there's any government or anybody that quote unquote refuses. I think there have been people in there who have seen it, who have said nobody else is to see this, and that's why you get what's. I guarantee you that there have been people in there that have seen something, whether it's a find knowledge or a Stargate portal or whatever. There's something in there that they said lock it down. Nobody else but us is to know about it.
Well, I sent you a link yesterday, Brent, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but there is a guy that is suggesting that the government is intentionally hiding a lot of Tesla's inventions and that there is a conspiracy of very rich and very few individuals that not even are associated necessarily with governments that have been dictating what kind of technologies and that we know about, and that we could we could be 100 years ahead of where we're at now if it wasn't for these guys.
Absolutely. I mean, Tesla could have. It was Rockefeller that shut down Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
He had a way of creating a free energy source that literally uses practically nothing. It doesn't kill the environment. It would power cars, it would power homes, it'd be an unlimited source of energy that Rockefeller knew would put him into the poorhouse and shut it down and put him into a silence mode. And, kudos to Elon Musk for calling his company Tesla and resurrecting his name again, because what Tesla had created, like you just said, would have put us 100 years in advance of where we are right now as far as what we would be able to do.
Yep. Okay, Sean, let's talk a little bit about, you're the historian among the three of us. What would constitute an ancient civilization? Basically, give us the definition so the audience can follow along.
So, well, I don't know if I'm going to give you the right definition, but generally it's accepted that ancient civilizations are prehistorical. So oral, where a lot of oral histories come. So, for instance, the Old Testament, most of it is really considered prehistory, because none of it until the diaspora. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of the right words. When the Babylonians came in and took over Jerusalem, when Nebuchadnezzar was king, everything regarding their religious dogma was oral, and it didn't get written down until they were captives of the Babylonians in around the 6th century BC, I think it was. So previous to that, it's pretty much ancient. Was that too long of a?
No, it's actually pretty good.
So Abraham is considered prehistory because there's actually no archaeological evidence that Abraham actually ever existed, but there's a lot of oral history. Moses too. No archaeological evidence.
Well, based on
that he existed.
Academic ancient history, they claim that civilization first started in Mesopotamia, and the Sumerians were the first ancient race.
Right. Right. Well, they were the first. The first that started creating groups of people that were larger than like city-states. They were the first people to create cities, towns.
Let me ask you this though, because
before that, it was all
that's a Christian
hunter-gatherer and
what was
tribes.
That,
so that's a
Judeo-Christian.
What about inside of China and Asia and those countries in there where I'm just asking this question, but are there texts, are there writings that predate the Mesopotamian texts and stuff like that?
Well, and that's why I brought up the Graham Hancock Netflix. If you guys haven't watched it, you should, because I think, where do you think most of academia comes from in our modern world? It comes from Western civilization. The Eastern histories are not as known from China and Indonesia and some of those areas. And I think the problem is it's been kind of homogenized and westernized, and also too ignored that there could be a rich history before Sumeria. So that's why I say there's some holes or issues.
There is a lot of I'm going to specifically refer to China here because that's where the majority of the ancient documented history is at. But as far as I know, the earliest dynasties there, or the earliest dynasty was Z, XIA, and that was around 2000 BCE, and that is not earlier than the Egyptian. The Egyptian histories and Sumeria. Sumeria is older than that, so there is stuff there. But as far as dynasties are considered, Z, I'm pretty sure, is the first one around, like I said, 2,500 or 2,000, something like that. I
Well,
don't remember.
yeah, I know. I hear what you're saying. Well, no, what I was talking about in Indonesia, where they found this pyramid. Pyramid builders didn't exist except in Egypt, and now they're finding pyramids in South America
All over the
and
world.
in Indonesia,
Yeah.
which I didn't know. But
And China too. There's some in China that the Chinese government is not allowing people to
when
do
they do the
archaeological
carbon
studies
dating,
on.
though, on these pyramid structures, they're finding that they come from before 12,000 BC, which is about the time this great cataclysm occurred that Hancock talks about.
Right, but the reason it's considered ancient is because
There's
there's
no written record.
Documented facts about it.
there's no written record of any. The earliest written records that we know about in history are Sumerian clay tablets, and the one going back to Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is one of the oldest, or is the oldest known poem. It's considered a poem to exist
And it talks about a flood, right?
So
that covers the whole world.
It does. It talks about a flood. Yes, a great flood. Yes, and the different characters, what happens, and the search for immortality that goes along with it. Enkidu was
So
one of
let
the
me ask you
heroes.
guys a
Yeah.
question.
Anyway,
You guys both grew up LDS and Christian. And, there are some groups within Christianity that believe the Earth's only 6,000 or 8,000 years old, which is absurd, of course. But when you think about Noah's Ark and the story of the flood and most of the Old Testament, a lot of the Old Testament is oral history, right? Basically, I tell you my kids a story, they tell their kids a story. It's like the telephone. Maybe it's a little more accurate than that because they probably felt these stories were sacred. But how much gets lost in translation over thousands of years?
well, we know that stuff does. So really, the things that are highlighted are people and what they do, and then the details in between are. But also, name changes, and because like you think about Moses, right? Moses, the name Moses means to be drawn out of water, right? So the story of Moses, there may have been a character named that did all those things, but his name probably wasn't Moses because the name of Moses fits the story too much,
Keep in
So
mind too,
these
with
stories,
Moses was not a good speaker. Most of his speaking happened from I can't remember who it was from. Like I don't know if he had a stuttering problem or
Aaron,
he just
Aaron,
Aaron, thank you. So
yeah, Aaron was his speaker.
so keep in mind that, like, yes, Moses, or who we know as Moses, had the authority from God and everything, but he wasn't a public speaker. He would be like, "Hey, Aaron, tell him this. Hey, Aaron, tell him that." And like if I tell Sean, "Hey, tell Carl this," it may come out a little different than what I had intended and stuff. But to go back to what you're saying about Noah, also remember during that time, you don't have a world vision of what's going on everywhere. So if I'm by myself and I'm with the family and there's a dam that breaks or a whole bunch of water and I'm getting flooded and all I see is water, to me, the whole entire world is flooded. Now, there's
Yeah.
proof also that during that same exact time in China and in other countries, there wasn't flooding during that time. So the flooding and everything of the earth washing out of the earth at that time is through his eyes that he sees.
I can give you an explanation of all of that if you want a very quick brief. There's two major rivers in that area, the Tigris and the
Yep.
Euphrates. Okay, when you go north of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers, um, there are some large mountain ranges, and they get snow, and it melts. Okay, so we know in this past year, just in our own backyards, or more Carl than us, really, but when you get a lot of snow in the mountains and it melts fast,
it's moist.
What's it do?
Floods the rivers.
It floods, right? So the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers are very, very well known for flooding a lot, and so there is evidence of some ancient massive floods where their silt levels have been studied, and just some cataclysmic type flooding has existed. And so what you said earlier, their entire world flooded. Their entire known world floods, so it becomes this narrative where the entire world floods. I personally don't believe that there's ever been a worldwide flood, but I understand the religious context and the stories that come from it and the purpose that they serve.
Look at what we even have video of a recent tsunami that in 2004 it was 2000. Anyway, it was a few years ago when they had that big earthquake in Sumatra and caused that huge tsunami. Yeah. But if you watch some of those videos of those waves coming on shore, and then not just that, you see some of those hotel views where you see the water just coming and gets higher and higher and higher. I mean, Brent, I think you're right.
Everything's underwater.
Yeah, if I was back then at that time and have never seen a tsunami of that magnitude, so there could have been a major earthquake, or there could have been a credible volcanic eruption. I mean, they're talking about if the Azores, a piece of the Azores falls the wrong way in an earthquake, that there could be a tidal wave so large that it's hundreds of feet tall when it hits New York and the East Coast of the United States. So it would be cataclysmic, in nature. So you'd think it's the flood if you're Noah, right? Or
yeah. So the point is that there are a lot of things that can happen, especially in an era where the knowledge that we have doesn't exist, where they would think the entire So
let me ask you. So anyway, go ahead.
I want.
How did we get to Noah when we start talking about?
I was going to kind of circle around back to the pyramids. I was going to kind of talk about the pyramids, because when you look at that, this has been one of the items that has puzzled historians and scholars are the pyramids in Egypt, because you look at the stone, you look at how it's put together. And I have heard they're built differently. They're created differently than if they were handmade. It's almost like, as some people have said, some type of machinery or equipment created the stone itself, which did not exist as we think during that time. And then a lot of the materials that come there are from hundreds of miles away. Now, we know that there's a lot of slaves that were used in Egypt, but I don't think that there was that many slaves that was used. So that's where there's been a lot of question about.
Sean, you disagree? Go ahead.
Well, we know that slave labor wasn't used to create the pyramids. It was paid labor. It's a lot of people. I don't know, Brent, if you're referring to the Jewish slaves but that's not. We know that that's not the case. That was something that I think our parents.
And yes, you're correct, Sean. So let me preface that with that's what we were taught.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No, and you're right, Sean. You're 100% right.
I'm not trying to discredit.
No, you're 100% right on that. But so then the question comes, where did this knowledge come from? Where did these precise stone, and not only in Egypt have we seen this, but we've seen this in other parts of the earth with some of these other structures.
So Brent, let me kind of clarify a little bit so I can make sure. So what you're basically saying, and this is kind of the same questions I've had, is you have a technology that created architecture or buildings that the historical people that we know existed during that time would not have been able to produce on their own. So how did that how were those buildings or structures created is the question. And if it wasn't the civilization that, basically we celebrate as the creators of the pyramid, then who was it that created the pyramids, right?
Right. And you look at a lot of the hieroglyphics that are on the walls, not only in Egypt, but you see it here in the United States also. Some of the old Indian wall art and stuff. We see what we were taught as, oh, well, this thing in the air with this halo around it is an angel and stuff. But when you begin to look at these actual images, it's not what these are. Like some of these hieroglyphics are depicting some type of craft that these bodies are in. And so then it kind of ties into maybe an ancient civilization that's able to fly that we were able to, or an outside entity that is being involved in life here on Earth. It opens up a lot of questions that people are really starting to dig into and dig deep into.
So was your dad a space alien, Brent? Is that what you're trying to say? We know Sean's was.
Dale the alien.
Dale the alien. Did he have a saucer, or was it like a Battlestar Galactica type ship, Sean? Do you know? Did he tell you?
Yeah, I don't know. My dad didn't really get into that kind of stuff.
My dad was a truck driver, so it would have been like the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, that sucker would have been exactly.
My dad was an aeronautical engineer for a defense contractor.
Oh, he probably knew what the...
So we wouldn't know what his would have looked like. It would have been beyond our realm of thinking,
Well, he worked on missile propulsion systems, so he spent time launching missiles.
So he knew about the conspiracy. He knew the aliens. We have aliens in custody right now, right?
Yeah, he probably heard some of that stuff. Yeah, I think it's all absurd.
Okay, well, yeah, let's talk about that, Sean. So, would you put yourself more in the category of natural progression of cultures, and then there was a cataclysmic Earth event, and it pushed the culture or civilization back in terms of progress, and then what we're reading now is the recovery phase of that?
Well, what I think for the most part, I pretty much buy what is commonly accepted with things like the pyramids, that they had developed some really amazing techniques to do some really crazy things, and they were able to accomplish it. But here's my devil advocate on what sometimes when people make the claims that aliens built the pyramids, why did they use such a rudimentary materials and building, for a lack of better words, building blocks than just big gigantic pieces of stone, when in, say, the 20th, 19th century, 20th century, 21st century, we're able to make these giant buildings out of steel? And
it's called oxidation.
We're not using
I mean, did you know that they're talking that the Titanic will be gone in another 100 or 200 years?
Yeah.
And Sean, you're asking a question about a piece of history that's lasted for what, 5,000 years? I mean,
and some people think longer. So
it seems like they did a pretty good job.
They did a great job, and it's an amazing job of what they did. And I don't know if the pyramids as they exist now look very, very different than what they looked like even 200 years ago. I think it was a couple hundred years ago, they still had the capstones on them. And then, unfortunately, the different wars that happened there, people warring over the control of the area, they ended up taking a lot of the capstones off of the pyramids to create mosques.
Did you guys ever watch those shows about after man, how fast the modern world would disappear? I think the problem we have in this discussion is there's no way to prove, if you go back far enough, if they did have any kind of modern technology. Like, okay, the theory is if it's space aliens, they should have left something more substantial. Correct? That's what you're disputing, right? That's something that we could still find archaeologically.
But it could go back to what you said, Carl.
Yeah.
It could go back to we do know about it, and they won't.
They're just hiding it.
Let us see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the aliens were just really, really smart and knew how to cover their tracks and not leave evidence behind, which is what this speculation is, which again is just
think about it too, Sean.
speculation.
What if everything we knew, we were raised with, we were taught in the Bible, in history when in the 80s and 90s, and there's still a lot of people that taught us that history that are still alive, that they immediately found out that the aliens have been running the show from day one. And what do you think what would happen to our culture, our civilization, if all of a sudden that news just came out?
I think the people would lose their collective.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
it'd be chaos. I mean, people would. I mean, it would shake everything.
But here's the problem: a secret of that magnitude, there's no
changes the course of history.
There's just no way that they could keep a secret like that.
Well, who does it benefit not to have the secret out? That's the real question. You always got to follow the money.
So, I want to retract back to Nebuchadnezzar.
Well, now you're going back to the idea of like the Bilderbergers and that kind of stuff. But back to Nebuchadnezzar.
So Nebuchadnezzar. So the story of Nebuchadnezzar is he conquered, I believe it was Israel, Jerusalem.
Israel wasn't a place.
Conquered Jerusalem, brought back 3 wise men, put them basically into this quote-unquote fiery pit. They didn't burn. They actually came out with a quote-unquote angel. So that theory, there's a piece that is out that has drawn some questions, but in Iraq, Saddam Hussein wanted to call himself the new Nebuchadnezzar. Actually built monuments and buildings, and in the stones on the bricks, it says Saddam Hussein, the son of Nebuchadnezzar. And one of the thoughts is that we went to war, not for weapons of mass destruction, but to stop this, a Stargate of sorts that Saddam had seen and had known about, that is built inside of a large building. Well, it's not built there. It's inside. He built this piece around this old historical part. That,
are you kidding? I didn't know.
According to some people,
okay,
yeah, and that
you mean like the Transformers? How they built the Hoover Dam around the Transformers to hide them?
Yeah, somewhat like that. But so the thought of some of these people now is that the 3 wise men were put into this Stargate, which spun around like a wall of fire, and as they came out with another person, another, someone from another dimension. And that's what Saddam had his hands on, and why the U.S. found it important to stop that, because he was going to begin to use that.
I've never heard this crazy theory. Wow.
I actually sent you the video on. That's what I showed you yesterday. Was that video?
Sorry.
So obviously you didn't watch it. So and it's a piece that's on ancient aliens.
Okay.
I enjoy watching that show. I find it very, very entertaining, and the ideas and the thoughts and theories that they have from there. But that was one of their episodes, was Nebuchadnezzar and Saddam Hussein and the Stargate portal.
Well, that's interesting. I've never heard of that, actually. So that's a new one. I'll have to go back and watch that video. That's cool.
So in talking about them back, kind of tying everything in, how do we know about this? How do we lose this? There may be, maybe in Antarctica, there's a portal like this.
Now I've heard
maybe,
okay, Brad, about the pyramids in Antarctica. I have heard about the alien theories, that there's 5 alien races that we've discovered over the years, especially after the Roswell incident. That and maybe it happened before that. They just, we haven't heard about that because the Roswell one was a little harder to hide or classify. But that the
There's been so many
that
things about that,
yeah that the
thoughts and everything,
right, we could do a whole show on Roswell, but in the Antarctic, that these pyramids that you're talking about, that somehow that one of these alien races uh, uses it as a base or something like that. So, well, let me ask you this question. I think there's always going to be debate if we have any kind of real evidence, because I don't see any. I'm like Sean. I haven't seen anything really that's convinced me that there is any true evidence that there are space aliens that have founded the human race. But let me ask you, Brent. You did point out something right before the show that you wanted me to show in the podcast. Is there evidence outside of the Earth? This is a good question. That we're not alone and that there's something going on.
Yeah, in the late '70s, NASA sent a flyover of Mars, and as many of us remember, when we saw it on National Geographic and in the book and all that, or in the magazine, I apologize, of the face of Mars that was on there, and along with the face of Mars, there was also the pyramids that they have found on Mars. Now, that face of Mars that you're showing there, the size of this is 1.5 miles tall by 1 mile wide. So this is not a small piece.
No.
This is it's not like a mask that's laying on Mars and stuff. This is a very, very large structure, of what it looks like. Now, when this was released and sent out, NASA quickly put a kibosh on it, saying, "Oh, it's not correct. It's just the way the shadows are forming and all this stuff." But of course, people who don't trust the government dug deeper. They found pyramids that are on there, and so it's kind of led to a question of, was Mars populated? What did Mars have a population like we see on Earth? And maybe was Mars where Earth is right now? Because where Earth sits in relationship to the sun, to the rest of space, it makes it an ideal area for civilization, for life to expand. We've seen polar ice caps on Mars. So what if Mars was in a position where Earth is today, and an event happened where Mars was hit by something, knocked it not only off axis, but off of its rotation of the sun and pushed it out, which, if that happened on any planet, would totally annihilate civilization as we know it. But what if some of those people with an advanced technology had, as we've seen in some movies, vacate the planet to come to a more livable planet, which at that time then became Earth, and we began a new civilization that is known here on Earth with a lot of the same stuff and thoughts and ideas. Obviously, they couldn't bring a lot of that technology with them here because we don't have the same elements and everything that would be available here on Earth. But it's led that kind of questioning of an ancient civilization that was more advanced than what we have now.
Well, they talk about a planet between Jupiter and Mars that could be the asteroid belt now, or a moon of some type. I mean, I don't know if they have enough material to claim it was a planet, but there's also theories that there's a real small moon that orbits Mars, I think, or maybe I don't, or is there two? I can't remember.
There's a few, I believe there's a couple,
but they're very small. They're nothing like the Earth's moon. And the question is,
let me just say, if it wasn't for Jupiter, we would all be dead. Let me just say the importance of Jupiter in our solar system, because of its gravitational pull, pulls all these asteroids in. So
well,
I just want thank you, Jupiter.
And then there's an argument that the Earth's moon is too large for a planetoid of its size, and the moon could actually be some piece of another. So, I mean, theoretically, Brent, you could be correct. Did Mars have was Mars closer to the sun? I mean, right now it's a little cold on Mars to be living there. And it gets a little hot because it doesn't have an atmosphere, but it's far enough away from the sun that it would be very difficult to grow crops and there's some other issues, what I've read.
Today it is, yes.
Yeah.
but maybe in the past
Well,
it
even if
wasn't.
they even if they created an atmosphere, I still wonder if it's viable to live without a spacesuit on Mars. But
But if Mars was in a situation where we are right now,
well, yeah,
if an event happened that pushed it back,
if it was closer
yeah.
to the sun, but there's still a lot of other issues with that theory that scientifically we haven't been able to prove, Brent. That's the problem. And so, I mean, if you're using current
Except
science,
we're seeing man-made structures on there.
well, is it a man-made
Not
structure?
man,
I
but
mean, I was looking at that picture, and I mean, it's obvious that there is some shadow that could.
Look at a high resolution photo of that, and it looks
Okay,
totally
high
different.
resolution. Okay, all right. While I'm looking that up, you guys can discuss.
It's a mountain, it's a mountainous area that has
Here we
some
go.
shadows on it. And when it was taken in 1978, the low resolution, you can't pick up the other details. So all it's picking up is the shadows that are really dominant on there, that make it look like a face. And it's
All right, I found it. Oh, hold on a
doesn't
second.
doesn't look
Let's
like
see
it.
here. You guys can all decide because I think there could be room to disagree or agree. So as you can see, the one on the right, Sean's right, it looks like a mountain, but then you see this one. That sure does look like a face, though. Here's a little more high resolution one from closer. It looks like a mountain. So, yeah.
But you see an image of a face, and if there's, in a catastrophic event, if there's an asteroid that hits here, the amount of dust and everything that comes consume, that's what kills everything, is dust enters the atmosphere and then gradually brings itself down.
You know why they call Mount Timpanogos Mount Timpanogos, right? Have you guys ever wondered? Because it looks like an Indian
I thought it was
princess.
some Indian name.
Yeah, it looks like an Indian princess. The peaks look like an Indian princess laying down, breasts, head, feet. So I think geology sometimes tricks the eyes. I think we need to find something more substantial than a mountain range to determine if.
Pull up the pyramids of Mars and show that picture.
Well, there was a guy that wrote a lot of stories about Princess of Mars, and there was a real bad Disney show called John Carter. But yeah, no Mars aliens.
So another thing I'd like to point out is that I believe the size of that mountain, the length of it is like 2.5
No,
miles long.
mile and a
That's
half.
a big
Mile and a half long,
that's a big
mile
damn
wide.
face.
Yeah. But we've seen structures in the past that have been, we've seen the giant structure of Alexandria in Egypt. We've seen, and who knows what else could have been
Lighthouse
around
of
that area. Like
Alexandria?
it could have been a city that was in that area. It could have been all kinds of stuff that when dust settles, we don't see. We haven't been on Mars enough to know what's deep inside the sand and everything. Well, maybe we have, but they're just not going to release it.
Well, I'll agree with Brent. I agree with you that there has been a willful disregard of certain academic circles of exploring things that other people say, hey, there's something here, let's take a look at it. No, it doesn't fit our paradigm of how we look at history or we look at certain academic areas. I mean, we used to do that with physics. I remember back in 1900, 1910, some dude declared, hey, everything we know everything we need to know about physics. Well, that was ludicrous because, I mean, Einstein wasn't even around yet. So, I mean, things change.
Galileo was put in prison.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, science.
Who did that? Who you want to identify who put him in prison?
That would be the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
The Pope.
Yep.
Well, here, and that kind of brings up, Sean. I'm glad you brought that up. The church, and this does bring up a question. This ancient civilization's a fun a fun sideshow or a fun topic that we can talk about, having a beer. But in reality, some people get really uncomfortable with this subject, and uh, let's talk a little bit about that. Well, why why would us?
Have you guys seen the movie Prometheus?
Yeah, I did watch that. That was
The,
okay.
and do you remember the very beginning of that movie?
Yeah, I remember that. Or they seed the
It's
world.
it's an interesting thought and stuff. Yeah. So guy comes down. Well, a person, I don't know what he is, someone from another planet comes onto the Earth that is newly formed. There's really nothing here at all, and he drinks this stuff that disintegrates his body, that flows into the water, and then into the water these cells occur, which spawn a new life form, brings things out of the water, yada yada yada, stuff like that. Um, and there are people that believe that something like that happened. Now, if that does happen, that takes away the concept of a one God. That takes away a concept of religion. That takes away, a lot of thoughts and ideas that are brought forth, not only in Christian religion, but in Muslims and basically all religion. It takes away from.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think even in the Bible, Sean and I were talking about this one thing. Have you ever heard of the Nephilim? Is that how I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
okay.
but that's okay.
You know what I'm talking about, though. It's those giants that the
The giants,
children of men had sex with and created
men.
some wild.
No, the children of men had relations with women that resulted
Oh,
in the
okay.
Nephilim.
These are the offspring, the crazy offspring.
And I
Okay.
didn't. Right. Which,
It's in the Bible, though.
yeah, which it is in the Bible. It. So again, I go back to when I was talking earlier about when the all that stuff was, they started writing it down. Who were they with? Who were they living with? The Babylonians, right? So there was some Babylonian myth that seeped into the writings
Yeah.
at the time. So
No, I agree with that. I,
anyway,
one thing that I've noticed, and if you do I was doing some research on ancient Rome, and because if you watch that movie, if you've read the Iliad or the story of Troy,
Odyssey.
the rumor was one of the Trojans who escaped founded Rome, and it's a complete myth, and there's not a lot of validity to it. But so I was just looking at, and I was kind of just curious and went down a few rabbit holes and started doing some research and actually listened to a pretty good book by a real historian. And it was interesting to hear how myth and legend are created, and kind of theoretically how it's created. A miracle to someone who has no scientific background or knowledge of about a certain subject, which if you put us back 200 years in history, a lot of the stuff we're doing with a computer program that talks to you called AI or computers, period, TV. Could you imagine what someone 300 years ago would think? I mean, we would look like gods to anybody that we
Yeah.
showed up. So,
Or an airplane.
right.
Seen an airplane in the air.
Exactly. So, could you imagine
Yeah.
how easy it would be to create those myths and then pass those on orally for centuries? So, here's my theory, and I'm just going to summarize. I kind of lean more towards the non-alien version of where we came from. I think, though, that genetically we were capable of. I mean, I think there are cataclysms, and they're talking in the future that if there was, if Yellowstone went off, or we had a series of Yellowstones that went off, that it would basically almost wipe out mankind. But the survivors, those who are left, would have to recreate civilization again, right? So the question is, what kind of story would they tell each other? And what kind of myths, and then what kind of technology or advancement would occur with those people? So I can easily see that there were civilizations before what we read about, and that they just died off or wiped out or disappeared, and I don't know why. And that now we get what we get now from those people who survived and rebuilt. So that's my theory. That's what I believe right now. I haven't been proven. I haven't found anything to convince me otherwise. To answer your question, Sean, as far as advanced technology, I don't believe there's aliens, but I do believe that there could have been a lot of technology that could have created those, Brent, you were talking about, these huge blocks. And I don't think the ancient Egyptians, at least the ones I read about in history, could have done that. But I do believe those. So those pyramids could have existed. So I mean, the Graham Hancock cataclysm to me seems like a valid theory, even though it's not been proven scientifically. Anyway, that's my summary of my feelings on ancient civilizations. Go ahead, Sean. What do you think?
I think that there are a lot of really smart people that had different levels of technology that we had now. Those people back in Egypt before Alexandria, way before Alexandria, people of the Mesopotamian cultures, they knew a lot about math, and math is like the most true thing that exists, right?
It's better than stories. Yeah.
Math, you can't lie about math. It's true or it's not true.
Right.
There's no no gray areas there.
There's no what's or ifs.
So no, it is either is or isn't. So the mathematical understanding of these people, they understood math in a different way than I would say even we do today. And some of those things that they knew, they were able to create some ways of doing things, like floating a 20-ton obelisk that they carved out of a mountain 2-3 miles away downriver. So, and things like, well, how the hell did they get it up by the pyramids? Well, the path of the Nile is different today than it was back then. It was much closer to where the pyramids were. In fact, it was right at the base of the pyramids. So I think that there's explanations for all of it, that some of which we don't understand, because the fall of societies means that there's also a loss of information and understanding of things that happened during that societal reign. So, that's where I'm at
good,
with
Sean.
it.
And Brent, what do you think? Do you feel that it is possible that man had a start that was alien in nature?
So I believe that there is a God, and in all of his infinite wisdom, he created the University of Utah and their athletic program, which,
boy, he made a mistake. Wow.
No, because God is perfect.
You know who actually started? Who started University of Utah? Do we need to go to that?
No,
Brigham Young.
Yeah, and anyway, no,
and then he decided that since it was a state-owned institution and he couldn't control what was being taught, he'd have to create his own little
wife college.
Area.
So anyway, back to my belief. So no, I do believe in a God. I do believe, I am a devout Christian. However, I am open to the possibility that there is something more out there and that it can be tied in together. It doesn't mean just because there is science and there is religion that they cannot be tied in. And one of the things I'm a firm believer of is that what keeps us as an archaic civilization is that we cannot understand or comprehend life without time. Time is the one constant that holds us back from everything. And once you can eliminate time from an element, then you've opened up new possibilities that we don't understand, that we cannot understand, because our whole concept of life, like you mentioned, Sean, mathematics is also based on time. There's a beginning and there is an end. And once you can get past that barrier, then you've opened up a whole new realm. that again we just don't understand. So I, as I listen to these theories and speculative ideas that, like the Mars situation, like a pre-dated civilization that was very advanced. You look at the cities that have disappeared. You look at Atlantis and stuff like that. I'm open to those possibilities. I'm open to wormholes and, quote unquote stargates that could take us to another level because they defy the thought of time that holds us back. So that's kind of where I stand. I'm in a learning process.
I don't deny some of the scientific possibilities of what you're talking about. I just don't think that humankind has ever had the understanding or knowledge to really go
We're
beyond
doing now. Yeah.
what we have today.
Right.
So do I think that do I think that there's a group of three dad bods on some distant planet having a podcast like this? I don't know. I have no idea. But
I could have.
but I also I do think that there is some form of life on other planets, whether it's bacteria or single cell amoebas or whatever. I do really think that probably exists
now
somewhere.
here's a subject we haven't really discussed though, and this is something I want to talk about maybe in the next cast or a few casts from now, is UFOs, because
let's talk about it.
Well, okay.
Because I think that's a very important part.
That's a whole topic.
There's a whistleblower,
but that talks about other civilizations.
Well, did you guys watch any of those? There's been a ton of them about this guy who worked real high up in the government, and he's out there. I'm surprised he's not dead yet. Talking about aliens and talking about UFOs. He's claiming that we've known about it for a long time, and that we have a number of alien vehicles, and that a lot of our technology now in the last 50 years is inspired by some of this technology. Believe it or not.
I don't say that that's impossible. I think it's possible.
I think it's fact.
Whether it's probable or not.
I think it's fact. I think it's absolute fact. There's been too many occurrences that have been seen and documented. To think that we are the only intelligent life force in this gigantic universe is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
Some people think this is a government, what do they call it, red flag or event, where they're trying to trick us again into talking about a subject while they do something else to
divert,
take away more of our freedoms. Yeah, there's a squirrel, do you believe that? Could be a possibility too.
I think that there's a stronger likelihood of it being government misinformation to try to steer people.
So another 9/11?
Yeah.
So Sean, you don't believe that there's intelligent life forms that are more advanced than we are in the universe?
I didn't say that. I said earlier, just a few minutes ago, I said I think
you said
it's
amoebas.
I said that there is at least, at minimum, the building blocks of life in other places, at minimum. And I think probably there are existing beings of some kind somewhere, but I doubt that they look like us.
I think that we are the Joe Bidens on the life forms of the universe is what we are. We're
they don't
bumbling
speak English.
Idiots. No, of course they don't. They speak a more advanced. They probably are more telepathic and stuff.
3 guppy fish called 3 Dad Bod podcasts going on some planet in Beetlejuice.
Do they look like Spock, or do they look like other, Star Trek type beings? Who knows? I'm not saying that doesn't happen or exist. We don't know. It's speculative. There probably is. The size of the universe and galaxy and the existence of everything outside of what we know is too massive to even comprehend. So to try to claim that stuff doesn't exist in all of that space is...
There's an alien version of me. I hope it has blue skin. Wouldn't I look beautiful with blue skin?
No. Bald and blue is not beautiful. Sorry. But so you don't think that... You don't believe, though, that the aliens have visited Earth? Or had a presence here?
It's possible, but there's nothing that shows that I've ever seen that I
Well,
think
okay.
that
Let me
has
ask you a
happened.
question.
But I'm not saying
Is
it's
it
not
is it
possible.
more likely angels and this is not to you, Brent, because I know you believe in you're Christian, so you believe this is correct. But Sean, and I know you're Christian too, but different. Mormonism
I
and
was going to say, what are you saying about
Catholicism,
me?
Catholic, uh, Catholicism and
Catholicism.
Mormonism kind of differ in some theories as far as heavenly beings. So, so do you believe in heavenly beings, Sean, or would you be more? I mean, some of this, like we've talked about ancient civilizations, could some of these stories that have been passed on, as far as angelic visits, be aliens?
I guess I would be more inclined to believe that there are heavenly beings visiting the Earth before I would believe that there are alien life forms visiting
Okay.
Earth. Because and specifically because the latter would mean that there's technology in existence that allows travel from planet to planet faster than the speed of light. Because if you
They've been able to
understand,
eliminate time.
Well, here.
well, and that would be the only way possible for that.
Right.
And
Right.
if it's a heavenly being, you're talking about something
Well,
that
and
What's that movie with Matthew McConaughey?
omnipotent.
What's that movie with Matthew McConaughey? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Interstellar.
Yeah.
Interstellar.
Yeah,
That
Interstellar.
movie
It's great.
is mind blowing. When he goes into that paradigm of time, mind blowing.
Yeah.
Brett, I was gonna play off something you said earlier about how humans are used to certain parameters in their 3D or 4D existence. Okay, dimensional view of the universe. What if there are what we call angels that are forms that appear to humans and can change their phase of existence because they're not biological? That there's a possibility that there could be aliens that can change their,
Well,
things that we don't understand as human beings.
okay. Okay. Can I
Right.
just say one thing real quick here? The idea of an angel being on the
Mm-hmm.
earth, wouldn't that be an alien
Oh
anyway?
yeah, a light, a form
Right.
of energy
So
Hold
that
on
we don't
though. Hold on.
understand.
that would
But
be an
an
alien life form, right? They
well,
don't exist
it
in
depends
our
on what your
dimensional
definition is though.
understanding.
Because an angel is a celestial being, correct?
Well, what's a celestial being?
Well, I mean,
I know.
hypothetically, that's what we call
I
them, but
mean,
I mean, they also call aliens celestial beings because they come
from
from
Right,
above,
right.
above,
right?
and in religious
That's
context,
our
Yeah.
definition today of what
especially.
that being is, but maybe there's a scientific definition we just don't know.
Look,
Do you know that in ancient Hebrew, the reason why the sky is blue is because they believe that it's a body of
Yeah,
water above
I've
us,
heard that.
and
and that got
so yeah,
discredited,
so
I mean, obviously, that
it
there's,
got discredited.
Well, I
but
mean,
there's
We
there,
we know that there's no sea bottom
I
celestial
talked
being.
about the element of time which blocks us, but guys, how much of the human mind is actually used percentage wise? It's like
Like
10%.
10%. I don't even
You
think
know,
it's less
there,
more than that.
there's another 90% that's not used that we, for whatever reason, don't access or don't have the ability to access.
yeah.
So I think as part of that, there's that element of reducing time. There's the element of changing mathematics. There's a whole plethora of things which these other bodies that are not here, they may be using 40% of their mind, which would put them a whole lot more advanced than what we are. There could be some that are using 70%, Um, it, that's just a realm we
Well,
cannot comprehend.
Brent, I think I agree with you in some ways too, because look at it this way. We have this belief that we have a soul and then we have a human body. Human body is a biological organism.
Show.
What is a soul?
intelligence.
Yeah, but okay, intelligence. Okay, what is intelligence if it's separate from the biological organism? It's got
It's not biological.
Well, yeah, obviously. So it's a symbiote. It's a symbiotic entity that inhabits a biological organism. So is the soul really us, or is the human biological body? Because I mean, I look at death. That's why I don't like funerals. Is that person in the casket is not them? The soul,
Right.
the
Just
yeah, the
material.
person, Sean,
It's just material.
Sean. When I go to, hopefully you
equipment.
go to my funeral first because I don't want to go to your funeral. But when you come to my funeral, the big fat slob in the casket isn't Carl. Okay,
The big
the wonderful
blue-skinned-
personality that
The
you know
blue
and
one.
love.
We're gonna paint you blue.
Yeah.
You can paint me blue. Yeah, go ahead.
Paint you blue
Be
and then
red.
put a big white.
Paint you red
put
with a big
white
U
flag.
on your head.
No. Then
Oh,
I have
yeah.
to wait for you to die first because it'll be a blue for both of you. I'm gonna have BYU stickers. I'm just gonna place on the top.
It'd be
of your
like, what's
casket.
that U on the top of Carl's head?
You know
Yeah.
what, Carl?
Sean and I'd be back there going,
Yeah.
Sean's like, oh, I got an idea now. Anyway, no, but it does.
I'm not going to tell you now. You're going to have to wait until you die.
Well, I just wanted to end on the thought: what if the true aliens are us? Could be.
that's a pot, you know.
Yeah.
And then we leave here and we go onto another planet and inhabit another shell and
Could be a fish. I want to come back as a fish. I can move around the world, ocean.
That'd be a bird, man.
You know what?
Totally be a bird.
If we painted you blue, you might be considered a whale.
Oh, hey, I'm king of the sea, dude. King of the sea. Don't let any of those sharks.
Hey, and 2-hour orgasms. Can't beat that, buddy.
A whale does? Seriously?
Yes.
50
How do
gallon.
we go from spiritual talk to orgasm in like 5 seconds?
They spit out about 50 gallons of fluid.
Oh my gosh! Oh, that's a lot of.
It's
What's a new meaning to semen?
Yeah. It's like, so when you go swimming in the ocean, Carl, keep your mouth closed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey everybody, we
gotta get off your lawn.
Yeah, let's do it. Get off your lawn. So, okay, I've got one. It's not funny, but it is kind of a fun story. So, I haven't done my get off the lawn yet. So, but where I work, okay, I work in a department that's commission based and bonus based, and for the last month,
you work in a
I was
strip bar?
supposed to get this bonus that is sufficient enough to take care of my needs. Okay, so there's a guy in payroll. Everybody has a payroll clerk. And this guy hits the stereotype perfectly. Pencil neck, geeky head with glasses in his picture on Workforce. And thinks he's God. So anyone who emails him gets immediately talked down to and told how to do everything correctly. And so that was the first interaction I had with this guy over a month ago. And so, and according to my management and my team, they're like, oh, just work with the guy. You know, he is kind of a nerd and he is very sensitive. And, it just ticks you off when you hear that. But you're like, okay, I'll try to be a good soldier. So anyway, I knew I had this feeling like Tuesday commission is run, and then you have to have your correct numbers verified by that point so they can pay you by Friday. Well, I get my commission numbers and they're wrong again. And I asked my immediate manager, hey, shouldn't we say something to the old pencil neck guy? And they're like, no, they're all afraid of him for some reason. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get screwed again. And sure enough, Thursday morning when you can check your paycheck out online, I was screwed over again. So I write a diplomatic message to the guy saying, what the hell, basically, and includes everybody up the chain all the way to the head honcho in our whole division. This was approved. Why didn't I get paid on it? And the pencil neck responds, well, Yeah, I got that email over to payroll, but the problem is we're paying all the door-to-door guys at the start of the month, and unfortunately, you didn't get your bonus again, and we'll get it on the next one 2 weeks from now. I'm like, yeah, that's great. So
The only time, Carl, that happens is when a company is struggling financially and they don't have enough
I was
money to
just going to
pay
say
all the
that.
people.
and I didn't say who
I
the
was
name
just
of
going
that
to say
company
that.
was, by the way, because I edited it out, but you probably all recognize it. But anyway, that's a get off the lawn and a big FU to this company. So what were the results? I sold a vehicle I
Get
haven't
off
been
the lawn.
using. And this is all within one day, and I applied at 15 different companies, and I have 3 or 4 interviews soon. So, and if anybody at work hears that, I mean, tough, because I don't want to be
I'm sorry to
treated.
hear
I
that,
can't
but
continue to be treated
that's
like
not
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's not right
That's
at
too
all.
that's
bad.
a get off your lawn.
When you
Get
don't
off
take
my
care of
lawn.
your employees, that's a bad situation. And Sean's 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What Sean said.
Anyway, that's my
Sorry,
get off
bud.
your lawn. Oh, thank you guys.
That's my favorite phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
I appreciate it. Anybody
Good
else
luck,
have a good
Carl,
story
with
this
that.
week?
Yeah, I didn't get to sleep worth a crap last night.
Well, that's why you're honoring,
my
huh?
neighbors behind. My neighbors behind me. They're nice people, right? But they sometimes spend too much time on the karaoke machine doing drunk karaoke. And last night they were doing it till 1 o'clock.
Sorry, Sean.
And
Sorry, Sean.
you know,
I was over there. I should have told them that you were asleep.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Hey, Staying
that
Alive
explains
comes on, and I'm hitting it.
Woohoo!
That explains the female voice.
Yep. I'm a cappella, baby.
Yeah.
Staying alive.
That's
What
the
time
Bee
was
Gees,
it?
none of
Sean,
them
what time was this at?
Well, they finished about 1 a.m. my
Okay,
time.
that's a get off the lawn moment.
Yeah, it is a get off your lawn. So what
Yeah.
did you do? Did you
Yeah.
say anything to him, or?
No, I might say something, but what I want to do is I want to start launching smoke bombs or stink bombs over the fence when they do that, because it's not the first
You
time
need
they've
retaliation.
done it. So,
That's always a good.
No,
That's
what you
always
do
a
is
good
at 5
answer.
o'clock in the morning, at 5 in the morning,
Oh,
you put a speaker up really loud playing I Am a Child of God or something like that across there.
Oh.
5 in the morning.
oh, I've got
That's-
one good story with that.
it would be Metallica, but what I have done is I've gotten up really early.
And I want to
Mow the lawn.
I want to tell this story, and
Get
that's
off
a
my
get
lawn.
off my lawn, Sean. That's a good story. I want to tell this story though because Glenn was part of this. So this was years ago. My parents owned a boat for a short period of time, and we decided to do a Lake Powell trip. And Glenn was invited as one of my buddies to hang out with because there were just a bunch of girls, and my friends.
There must have been a lot of sunscreen that was used on that trip.
He just slept the whole time. Anytime Glenn's on a boat, he just goes to sleep. But anyway, so we stopped in a canyon that night. We stayed at this, you know how they have those little sandbar locations you can camp out on. Well, there was a young group in a couple boats that stayed in a houseboat just really close to us. And they did the same thing Sean was talking about. Just noisy, drunk as hell, making all kinds of noise. They knew we had young families. And so my dad and his buddy George, they talked about it in the morning. And they said, okay, everybody up. And it was really early. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And these guys had probably only been asleep 3 or 4 hours. And they said, as we leave this canyon, we're going to take our boats right up almost next to theirs and wake them. And wake, W-A-K-E, as far as the wake from the water, and then gun the engines as you pull out. So everybody's on board, all the kids, everybody. And we didn't know what was going on. But like I said, Dad, why are we getting so close to their boat? Watch. And then we almost hit their damn boat. And then they gun out, and then you could hear, what the F? And people running out, trying to grab their boat before it smashed against the rock next to where they were buoyed or tied up to. And we were just laughing our asses off as we drove away. But I don't know.
Good for Kent, man.
Yeah.
Good for Kent.
Kent George. causing some pain. Gotta love it.
That's awesome, man.
Get off my lawn,
Kent. You were one of my favorite people when I was a kid. That's grand. That's fantastic to hear that.
Anyway, hey, I love you guys. It was fun. And Sean, keep us updated on our buddy. Okay, we love him.
Please,
I'll let you know.
Yeah,
I'll let you know. I'm gonna doctor up a photo of him painted blue and show it to him. See what he says.
That'd be funny, man. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you again next week. Out.
See ya.
thank you guys.